Welcome back, everybody. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you guys are following the channel from. This is United versus Everybody. I'm sure you knew that already. I am your host, Sean. I hope you knew that already. We are back today with I would call it a fun video. I guess it's not really fun for a lot of us. A lot of us are probably still kind of caught up in a little bit of frustration, a little bit of anger, trying to find a place to point that anger towards, point that frustration towards. Anger needs a target, and sometimes it's easy to find one, even if it's justified or not. I'm not going to say anything is justified or not. I'm just saying that's the way anger works. But we are back today. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know that when it comes to Ineos a little bit and Sir Jim, I've been holding a little bit of my main judgment. In my opinion, I've said from the get-go, I wanted to wait and see what happened in January, how we approach January, because that's going to tell me how we're viewing the season, how we're viewing the finances, how we're viewing the project. Really, it doesn't mean that I haven't been critical when appropriate, because you guys know that I have been critical when it's justified. I don't hold back from criticism. I don't like knee-jerk reactions. I like critical and justified. I've been critical of how long it took us to do business in the summer. You guys know that. I was not a fan of the hike in some of the ticket prices. You guys know that as well. And you know full well since September, I've been demanding that we do some proper business in January. And that was even when Ten Hag was in charge. I've been saying like the summer didn't handle enough of the priorities, I thought. But what I said again was what we did, or more importantly, what we didn't do in January would tell me how Ineos are looking at the remainder of the season. So, all that being said, January has come and gone, and I'm ready not only to share a little bit of my own thoughts, but more importantly, I want to hear what you guys think, what your thoughts were on January. We're going to talk not just about the window, but everything leading up to the window that has impacted the window, everything leading up to the window that gave us a little hint, maybe, of what we could expect. We're going to talk about all of that. Call it therapy, call it venting, call it what you want, but we're going to get all of it off our chest today. I want to hear it. So hit me with it. Hit the like button while you're doing that. Subscribe if you are new to the channel. Share the video if you want. Don't forget to turn on that bell if you want to make sure you don't miss out on any content. Check out the membership perks as well if you want to get more involved. And then you can also eventually maybe join in on the live streams later on if you guys ever want to. So check those memberships out. Let's get stuck in. First things first, they'll start off with a little bit of, I guess you could call it a positive. It's not, but it's always fun to watch the under-18s. They did not win today, though. They played West Ham this morning in the Premier League Cup. Kokonki popped up with a goal, and Scanlon popped up with a goal to take it to extra time and then take it to pens, to a shootout. We ended up getting knocked out on the shootout, unfortunately. So other notable starts: Thwaites, Fitzgerald, Fletcher, Kamasan, Monroe. Now, Monroe captained. If you guys haven't watched any of the youngsters, watch Reese Monroe. The guy has the potential to be a great captain someday. He's a very good leader. He's a very good defender. He knows when to hype up the team. He knows when to calm everybody down to get them focused. He knows when, and as far as defending goes, he knows when to step up and make a challenge, get rid of danger, even if high up the pitch. He knows when to sit back. So I wasn't able to catch extra time. I had to go to the vet because my dog needed to get her yearly vaccines, but it does look like we were knocked out. So it always is cool to watch the youngsters. It's just unfortunate that they struggled. And now a lot of people are making a lot of fuss out of the fact that Obi Martin and Bragimov were not in the squad. Obi Martin just played on Saturday for the under-21, so I doubt that he would have played again so soon, but we'll see. So just a little tidbit of that. So to get back to the January business, so to get it again, like I said, to get a perspective on the January business, we sort of have to look back at the summer window. Kind of that, to me, was a little bit of a precursor of what this window was going to look like. Or you could call it a warning sign, depending on how you want to look at it. Some people are going to have a little bit more negative perspective on things. For me, the biggest sign that the finances were going to continue to be tight was the Ugarte deal, and even you can even say the Wan-Bissaka deal. But again, these deals were hinging and delayed because we were waiting for money from player sales. Even in the summer, it was sell to buy. We had to sell Wan-Bissaka to bring in Mazraoui Delit. We had to sell McTominay to bring in Ugarte. Now, McTominay was good for us because it represented pure profit. We can count all that once. The outlay for Ugarte, we can amortize. That's the way PSR works. Again, we only got other business done after offloading other pure profits like Greenwood, Campwala, and then we had to sell Wan-Bissaka, like I said, Hannibal Mejbri out the door, and Facundo Palestri. All of those guys went out the door as well. That's what we had to do. Add to that, the need really to get huge earners off the books, guys like Raphael Varane, Martial. They left for free, but those wages were eating up a lot of the wage books. So again, the fact that we were okay with letting them go for free showed me that we were more focused on just getting those wages. I mean, you got a guy on $300K a week, that's over $1 million a month that you're paying to have somebody who's basically fit half the season in Varane or Martial, both of them. So that was a big, big plus getting those guys off the books. But what it told me is this is where we're focusing. Again, what we saw in the summer was two things. We need to sell to buy, and there was a big focus on getting those big earners off the books, even if they left for free, something that we continue to see here in January. So looking back, summer business done, right? Well, again, though, that we were already in a sell to buy situation even in the summer was a bit worrying. Fast forward a few months, results on the pitch are awful, and we sacked Erik ten Hag just months after extending his contract by a year. That decision cost us £16 million. Big up, Danny. How are you, man? I was waiting to see if you would pop in, man. I knew might be interested in this video, but good to see you again. So sacked Erik ten Hag, £16 million that cost us. Dan Ashworth was also shown the door after just 5 months at the club, after we spent several weeks chasing him, and then we spent roughly £3 million to pry him from Newcastle and get him over the line. He received a severance as well. Now, I haven't been able to find out how much that severance was, but we had to pay that out. So for now, I can only count what we paid for him. So that's roughly $20 million to fire Ashworth and ten Hag just 5 months after committing to them in the spring and summer. We moved quickly to bring Ruben Amorim and his staff, which also cost us a bit, nearly £11 million for that release clause from Ruben Amorim. And then because we didn't give the 30-day notice, because we weren't willing to wait, we had to pay a little extra. So we'll call it $31 million to fire Ashworth, fire ten Hag, and then to hire Ruben Amorim and his staff. All in all, $31 million this season, which counts against us as far as PSR goes. And a lot of people don't realize that. It counts against us PSR. That really, really hurt us. Teresa, good to see you. How are you doing? Teresa says, hi, everyone. Until if Amorim wanted it, I'm sure it happened. Dorgu is definitely going to change the game. He's going to give his teammates a run for their money. Let's hope. We're going to talk a little bit about Dorgu. Yeah, we can hope that he can do. He's going to bring a lot of pace, a lot of power. He does get really involved in the final third. He does find a way to put a lot of balls in the box, which could be good for our strikers. I think our strikers are starving of service, but he's still 20. So I want us to be patient with Dorgu. I'm not dissing him or anything. I like Dorgu. I'm glad we didn't pay a lot of money for him, but he's not someone who's going to come in and I think turn us into challengers right away. So he's going to need time. But so again, 31 million counting against us that we've spent to fire Ashworth, fire ten Hag, bring in Ruben Amorim and his staff. Now that was between the summer, which we already had to sell to buy, and we're already in a tough PSR situation. Now we've added 31 million that we have to make up. Not good. So word is that United basically gave Ruben Amorim a choice, right? Leave Sporting now, leave Champions League football now, leave, a winning season now, mid-season, or don't come to United. We're going to move on. And I'm frustrated with that because I don't think an ultimatum is really the best way to start the relationship with the manager. I really think that puts everybody in a weird situation to start. I'm not happy with that. One wonders, though, what else we promised him. What sort of reassurances did we give him besides, hey, a struggling season, a lack of finances, a step down from the Champions League to the Europa League, and just the Man United name, really, which apparently still has some pull, right? How are we planning to back him in order to salvage something from the season? How are we planning to put him in the best position to do something mid-season? Because you don't hire a manager mid-season if things are going well, right? Back the manager, though, that's a vague phrase. It's going to mean something different to everybody. If I ask everyone in the chat right now to put their definition on what back the manager means, I'm sure some of it's going to be similar, but there could be some differences. I think it's contextual. I think it's based on need as well. For most of us, it simply means buying players. When most people say back the manager, that means buy players, right? But that's not always the case. It didn't seem to be the case for Ineos and Ruben Amorim. For Amorim, back the manager seemed like it meant supporting the system he was bringing into the club, supporting the culture he was trying to instill within the dressing room, on and off the pitch, that mentality. Even if that meant weathering a storm of poor results and growing pains. And then also it meant supporting his decision to drop players like Rashford or Garnacho for various reasons, right? Laurie Whitwell actually reported this morning that from the United perspective, the January plan was to lose players deemed at odds with this culture that Amorim wants to establish. So that was always part of the plan, basically culling some of the lack of professionalism, the lack of mentality, the lack of work ethic, application, attitude. Cull that. If you can't get on board, you're going to get left behind. Is basically, according to Laurie Whitwell, that was the aim going into this window. Again, seems like that culture prioritizes attitude, application, both on and off the pitch. So again, ripping it down to the foundations and trying to rebuild a new, healthy, professional, modern foundation, and getting rid of some of that player power, that entitlement. Rashford didn't want to get in line. Garnacho did. It's just plain and simple. Amorim's also been very respectful, very clear with his reasoning behind some of those decisions. He simply just demands that players give their all, right? And the club backed him and worked to move Rashford, eventually loaning him to Aston Villa for the rest of the season. The majority of his wages are being paid by Villa. I think there's an option to buy. Same as Antony. Majority of the wages being paid. And there's some bonuses in there as well. So in terms of financially, that was probably one of the best loans you're going to see, honestly. Getting the majority of those wages off of those big earners, that's big. That's close to $500K a week that we're, or probably it's more close to maybe $400K a week that we're saving that way. My issue here, though, and I said this yesterday, is that we lost 2 attackers, albeit ones that weren't really in and around but the first team, but we lost 2 attackers, didn't bring any attackers in, leaving us with just 4 attackers when not only we're already struggling to find the net, but this system will play 3 of those players at any given time, leaving 1 maybe on the bench. What happens when someone gets injured? What happens when you need to rotate because of a busy fixture schedule? That's putting a lot of demand on those players. Again, if this was the plan going into this January window, to cull Rashford, to cull Antony, to whittle down those wages, get some of these attitudes out of here, what was the solution, though, to fill the void that's going to be left? It didn't seem like there was a big solution. Now, we know the club reportedly pursued Matthias Tell, but there also have been conflicting reports on just how serious our interest was. And we might never know the truth. We have reports. So Christian Falk, for instance, reported this morning that the Spurs deal for Tell ended up being a loan fee of 10 million euros, right? They're paying his entire salary, and they were given a 60 million euro buy option, which we weren't given. Remember, we were reportedly just trying to do a buy option, but Bayern didn't want that. We couldn't afford the initial loan fee that they demanded, and we didn't want to spend a loan fee to not get the option to buy him if he was doing well. We didn't want to basically spend money to develop a young player for Bayern and likely not get to keep him or sell him ourselves. Now, we wanted a loan, like I said. Bayern didn't do that. I mean, they were just dicks, honestly. But honestly, like, look at the deal that Spurs ended up doing for him. If that were United, we would get slammed for it. If we had paid 10 million euro loan fee, paid all of his wages, and then had a 60 million fee, we would be slammed. It would be literally another situation like we've been slammed for Rasmus Højlund. United overpay for a young, unproven attacker. Like, headlines like United makes same mistake they made with Rasmus Højlund? It would be the same thing. We would get slammed, but because nobody gives a shit about Spurs, nobody cares. Lionhearts, big up, everyone. Hey, everyone. Obi Martin and Biancheri getting promoted now then. Biancheri's still injured. I think Biancheri's still injured. He broke his hand. He had surgery. Obi Martin did not play today. He was not in the squad today for the under-18s in the cup that we were knocked out of on shootout. I don't know if that means he's coming in and around the first team squad. He did just play Saturday and for the U21, so maybe it's just a matter of getting him some rest after he's played a lot. But Teresa says, Antony, he looked happy and did well, clearly showing all. He also wasn't inclined to work for Ruben. Rashford doesn't look happy at all and still says he wants to move to Barcelona. Yeah, I did see reports that he probably doesn't want to stick around at Villa even after the loan. Antony, I just don't think Premier League football was Antony's cup of tea. I think he just can't hang. La Liga is probably going to do fine. So But yeah, we would be slammed if we did the deal for Matthias Tell that Spurs did, because that's a lot. Laurie Whitwell again claims the focus in January was, obviously getting rid of some of the players, but the big focus was adding a left wing back, staying financially restrained going into the summer, and then we're looking at a long-term striker for the summer. Again, I like Dorgu. He's not enough right now. I don't think he's going to make a huge difference right now. He, again, is one for the future. Now, that being said, I could be wrong. He could come in. He could do excellent right off the bat. He could be everything we dreamed of. I can't say that. For right now, I can only look at what I see on paper and what I've seen from Lecce, and the fact that he's still young. He doesn't even have like 60 matches under his belt for Lecce. He adds, Laurie Whitwell adds that we've also moved up our pursuit of Aiden Heaven. So we brought Aiden Heaven in. We weren't planning to do that until the summer. We ended up expediting that to get him in January. So we did do that a little bit. Again, though, it's not enough. And Heaven, we may have to play him sooner than anticipated because of Leach's injury. But again, we needed 10s. Obviously, the left wing back does help, but we needed some 10s. We needed some help up in front. So all in all, David Ornstein says, culminating in all this, that for Manchester United, January was about getting their house in order, according to David Ornstein. Now, the BBC says, United sources believe this approach proves they are maintaining a disciplined approach to their finances by not taking what they view to be a reckless or expensive risks for unproven young players they couldn't buy at a later point. So that, to me, that sounds like he's referring directly to Matthias Tell. Not taking a big financial risk on a player that we're not even guaranteed to have. BBC Simon, this is coming from Simon Stone. He says they believe this means that United will be in a better position this summer when players like Lindelof, Eriksson will be out of contract, and then the amortization of others like Casemiro and Antony may have reduced to a point where a sale is possible without further reducing PSR spending limits. So again, it seems like managing the PSR related stuff in terms of finances of contracts and wages and fees is a big maze that we've been trying to figure out. But when it was all said and done, let me see here. Lionheart says Anthony has one good game. Betis, his debut with United was also good. I don't even think he really had that decent of a game, to be honest. But I mean, who am I? So when it was all said and done, this is what our January business looked like. Now, Malacia is yet to be fully confirmed, but that pretty much seems wrapped up. But I put him on there anyway. Malacia on loan to PSV Eindhoven. Sounds like he was in Holland for his medical. Sounds like that's all but wrapped up. It will be announced probably sometime today. Rashford loan to Aston Villa. I didn't bother writing loan because all of these besides Ruben Curley are loans. Rashford loan to Aston Villa. Anthony loan to Real Betis. Ethan Ennis, Doncaster Rovers. Joe Hugo, Carlisle United. Ethan Williams, Cheltenham Town. Ethan Wheatley, Walsall. Dan Gore, Rotherham United. Sam Mather and Lewis Jackson, both on loan at Tranmere Rovers. Now, we spoke about that a little bit yesterday, that we were looking to find a loan option for Sam Mather, but Tranmere ended up getting both Mather and Lewis Jackson on loan, at this, which could be good for them. I think that Ennis going to Doncaster was good. Lewis Jackson's looked really good as well. And Ruben Curley, another youngster who was out of contract in the summer. We ended up just selling him outright to Stoke. There were a lot of bonuses included in that we're going to see some money from, so that works out. So those are the outs. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 outs, all of whom besides Ruben Curley are on loan. So could see some money, could see some loan fees, could see some bonuses. A lot of the wages for like Malacia, Rashford, Antony being taken care of, that does help. These are the ins. You'll notice it's not as long. I had to make the font super big. Patrick Dorgu came from Lecce, 20 years old, Danish left wing back. Aiden Heaven, 18-year-old left-sided center back, came from Arsenal. First team ready, according to Jason Wilcox. And then obviously Diego Leon from Cerro Porteño, Paraguay. He will join in the summer because he is not old enough to join yet. So he is just 17 still. So he will be here in the summer. So 2 ins, technically 3, but Leon's not here. 11 outs is the January business. And again, that seems like that was the focus, is to get some of these youngsters out on loan, get some of these wages off the books, get these players out like Anthony, Rashford, get them in the shop window, try to get some attention on them. That seems to be what the focus was from Ineos. Now, whether or not that was the right focus is up to you guys, honestly. I'm going to scroll down real quick. What do you guys think? Is that of the ins and outs. So we know we talked a little bit about it last night as well, but it's a fresh stream, so I thought I would see how everyone's feeling. Lionheart, so is Malacia still at United? I think technically yes, but I think for all intents and purposes, no. But he will be a United player. He's just on a loan. Rob says, well, welcome, Rob. How are you today? Fair play, plenty out on loan, gaining experience. Yeah, I think the youngsters getting experience is probably one of the best things we could see right now, because I do think that some of them are just on that cusp of whether or not they're going to show us if they're ready or not. Rob says, I feel like we will start seeing some of the remaining youngsters on the bench and given some minutes over the rest of the season getting integrated. I hope so. I hope so. I hope we see Biancheri. I hope we see Obi Martin maybe in and around. I would love to see somebody new on the bench on Friday. We'll do a preview of that one tomorrow. We're going to be chilling with Dylan tomorrow, so don't forget to stop by for that one. Mad Hatter 07, welcome back. It's been a minute. We are going to regret letting so many forwards go. I mean, I think for me, it's more of not replacing Antony and Rashford with somebody that's going to hurt. Now, it didn't have to be a striker, and I think we really needed a 10 more than a striker because we need ball progression, we need creativity, we need to find the strikers more than anything right now. But I think it's less about, because Antony wasn't really playing, Rashford wasn't playing at all. So again, we're not going to miss them on the pitch necessarily, but we do need a replacement, and it just didn't seem like that was the plan. Pearl, welcome back. Big up, everyone. I've calmed down after the deadline saga with Matthias Tell. I'm guessing Amorim doesn't rate Tell as a must-have now. I'm over being disappointed not having him. Well, we just spoke about Tell a little bit in the ins and outs of the Spurs deal. And I did point out, again, if that had been us that had done that deal, the 10 million euro loan fee, paying all of his wages, and then having that option for like 60 million, we would be slated for it in the press. We would be, because I listed the sample headlines. We weren't given the buy option that Spurs were. Bayern were just dicks to us, just plain and simple. They didn't want us to have a buy option, and we didn't want to pay a fee to basically develop a player for them. And so that we just kind of walked away from that one, reportedly. Rasta stocks. This window was a negative 0.0. Only one signing. Well, I mean, we got two signings technically. And all of a sudden, Luke Shaw is back to get injured again. Yeah, we'll see what happens with Shaw. Technically, it's two signings. Rob says, not blown away by the ins, but we don't tend to go mad in January, but agree we needed a forward player. Yeah, I think someone up front. Now, the only team that really did a lot of business, there were two of them that did a lot of business, Aston Villa and Man City. Now, the reason why is because Aston Villa got a lot of money from John Duran, and you get to count all that money from the sale all at once on your books as far as PSR is concerned, but they don't have to count. If they were to turn around and spend that money on one player, they wouldn't count all that at once. They would break that down over a number of years. That's how PSR works. They got Asensio on loan, they got Disasi, they got Rashford, and they got somebody else. I can't remember who else they got. So, and then City bought like 4 players. They spent a ton of money. City also sold Julian Alvarez for a butt ton of money in the summer as well, and they get to amortize that as well. Now they got Marmoush, they got Kushinov, they got Vitor Reis, and they just wrapped up Nico Gonzalez as well, who I think is probably one of the best signings that they've made in a while. So the other clubs don't have that PSR because the other clubs, the Arsenal, the Liverpools, and the Uniteds, we don't do well when it comes to selling players. When is the last time Liverpool sold a player? When is the last time Arsenal sold a player for a lot of money? When is the last time United sold? This is why we can't do a lot of business right now. Lionheart says, Wheatley had to go out on loan. For me, he's just not ready yet. His loan would be an important one. Yeah, Wheatley, I like the look of him. I think physically he has it. He's just got to work on his finishing, personally. Rasta stocks, to go to Spurs is crazy. I think Spurs still owes FC Bayern money. That's why they negotiated them. I mean, technically, don't Bayern probably still owe them for Harry Kane? Rasta says, Unai Emery, I could see him lifting a major trophy with that club. Yeah, it'd be funny if Villa went the Dortmund route that Sancho was on last year, where he got all the way to the final, right? We'll get a lot of money, though, if that happens. Rob says, have Man City spent big in anticipation of a transfer ban, maybe? Well, we've talked about that a couple times, Rob. I still haven't decided how I feel about that. To me, that makes sense. If you know you're going to be hitting with a ban, if you know you're going to be stuck, you're going to lock down Holland for a foreseeable future. You're going to start strengthening now in case you're not allowed to do so. It makes sense, but then again, I could also see City just being like, fuck it, we know we're fine. We'll just spend money and give it the big one to everybody. They don't tend to do big business in January though, so that to me is one of those outlying factors that tells me that there's something else going on. But we will see. Padraig, how are you? Padraig, right? Is that how you pronounce it? Padraig O'Brien. Welcome, another Irish brother from another mother. Both my grandmother and my I guess my great aunt or whatever you want to call it on my dad's side are both from Ireland. So I'm coming from an Irish family. Danny B is also Irish as well. So big up, welcome. We are doing well. We are just chatting a little bit about the summer or the January window right now. So we just went through the ins and outs. 11 players out on loan. Well, technically 10 out on loan. 1 in Ruben Curley, sold to Stoke City. He's from the academy. 3 in, technically 2 in because Diego Leon is not coming till the summer, but we got Aiden Heaven, Patrick Dorgu in. So helps us out. Teresa says, Maguire, Ahmad, Dorgu, Hayden, and Diego. Don't they fall asleep? Amarim saying, yeah, we'll see. Danny says, yeah. Is that how you say it, though? Parig? Is that how you pronounce that? You guys let me know. So on the window as a whole. So Rich with United TV, if you guys check out Rich's channel when you get a second, he commented on my stream from last night and asked whether or not, like, is this the least amount we've backed a manager in the window? Again, I think it's going to come down to your opinion and on what backing the manager is going to look like. I think finding the balance between addressing the immediate need and then also trying to hold true to a long-term vision in a project, that's a difficult line to navigate. And again, it's harder when you add the PSR layer to it. It seems to me this time Ineos are sticking to the vision. They were able to handle, they wanted to get a left wing back. They got a left wing back. We've been linked to Dogu for a while. They got their target. I get that. So they're just not being in a rush to make panic buys, which I can understand. And I'm actually thankful we didn't do any panic buys. Ineos likely believe that they are strengthening our position for future windows and for the project by cutting wages and trimming the squad. That seems to be the way they think they're going to handle things and better put us in a good position. Whether or not that was the right call, time is going to tell. I'm sure you guys all have opinions on that. As Whitwell and Ornstein report, though, the January window was all about the summer window, basically, making sure we put ourselves in the best position for summer business. Again, getting Anthony and Rashford's wages off the books is a big help. Even Malacia is on $75K a week, and hopefully that PSV loan will be wrapped up today. This will free up room when Eriksson, Casemiro, and even Lindelof leave. That's going to free up a lot of wages as well. That's like $600K a week right now between just those 3 guys. That's a big help. People don't realize that $600K a week. That's $2.5 million a month that we're paying for 3 players who are probably on the way out, who aren't really getting a sniff in right now, besides maybe Eriksson. My real worry, though, with the summer comes from how slowly we've moved this January and how slowly we moved last summer. We've been interested in Dorgu, like I said, for like a year, but we didn't get that deal over the line until the final weekend of the January window. That's you guys know how frustrating that is to me. You know how big I am with just getting the business done early, especially in the summer, because preseason is so important for a manager. I hate it when we wait till the middle of August to get deals over the line. I think that is so unprofessional. I think that's not helping managers whatsoever. If we're that slow, though, with a player that we've been following for that long in Dorgu, how long is it going to take to get summer business done? You guys know how frustrated I was with the Ugarte deal as well. Will we be forced to sell to buy again like we have been? Are we going to be sweating this summer to find suitors for Anthony when he returns from loan, Malacia when he returns from loan, Rashford when he returns from loan? Are we going to have to be stuck with them all summer and not be able to do business because we have them on the books still? I mean, is it going to be an issue where we have to wait to sell Rashford just to make our first signing of the summer? Like, that is frustrating. And that's what Jamie Jackson seems to think. He seems to think that, that's our summer is going to hinge on that. Will we wait until August to bring in key players like we've done the last few summers? Again, managers need a preseason, and it's going to be frustrating. The longer you wait, too, the more potential points are going to drop in August. The more expensive it's going to be to sign players, like the case with Anthony when he was like 30 million in June. We waited till August, and then it jumped up to like 85 million. That's not on Ten Hag. That's on the club itself. And furthermore, the less likely clubs are going to be willing to sell their players the longer you wait in a transfer window, because that leaves them less time to find replacements as well. All this is a result of moving too slowly in the transfer window, something that we've done over and over and over again. I'm going to catch up here with the chat. Rasta Stocks. I'd like to say I'm confident with us winning Europa League. I'm not confident at all winning the Europa League is a pipe dream right now. But he says, because that's the only way the Champions League, but I don't see that happening. The inconsistency with the players. Yeah, it's going to depend on the draw for us. And quite frankly, you almost think a tougher draw will be better for us. But because even the smaller teams show up and they just out physical us on the day, like FC20 did. Rasta Stocks, and the Butcher of Manchester is injured till next season. Yeah, that is very, very frustrating. We talked about that a little bit last night. Obviously, I tried to jump on with his shorts in the afternoon yesterday as the news broke to let you guys know that Licha did tear his ACL. It is the opposite leg, I guess, from the leg he injured before. So whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing is not good. It's just, I think his career has definitely taken a big, big hit with this injury, though. Danny says, I agree, Ross. I don't have the squad depth. These players are too flaky. We definitely don't have the squad depth anymore. Four attackers. Again, granted, those four attackers have been the main four attackers, but at the same time, Anthony was at least able to fill in if we needed to. We have to be able to rotate. And again, God forbid somebody gets injured. Can you imagine if Ahmad gets injured? We're fucked. It's just the way it is. Rasta says, have connection to FC Nice fans, and they say Ineos are penny pinchers. Most rich people are. I'm not, again, this isn't an excuse. It's just a fact. You have to be cheap to be rich. It's just the way it is. Most rich people don't get rich by spending their own money unnecessarily. They're going to find a way to spend other people's money, to find a way to get things without spending money. It's just the way rich people work. I'm not trying to judge. I'm talking more of like business owners and whatnot. They're going to find ways to save money and cut corners and maximize their profit to spend. It's just the way it works. Now Nice, where I agree, where you like it's not the same, is because Nice is not United. You can get away with that a little bit in the French league because that league's a farmers league. There's only one team that's winning that every year. I think Nice are in like 5th right now, so they're not doing horrible. You can't do that at United. It's expected that you're going to be competing. It's expected that you have to keep up with the rivals, and Liverpool, City, these clubs are already stacked and they're still strengthening. We're letting teams like Villa, Newcastle, Arsenal kind of start to overtake us as well. And not even on the pitch, but just in terms of recruitment, we're being left behind because we're too slow and we're taking way too long to make decisions. Lionheart says, if there's no money, then there's no money. Shouldn't spend what we don't have, isn't what the Glazers did. Yeah. And it's not even about like Sir Jim being rich or not, because if, let's say, hypothetically, the Sheikh, the Qatari bid would have been successful, they would be in the same boat. The only thing the Qataris would do is pay off the debt and buy a stadium. They literally can't spend more in the transfer market because of PSR. PSR doesn't care how rich you are. It cares about how much you spend versus how much you make on sales. And owners are only allowed to spend 100 million of their own over a 3-year period in that time. That's just where we're at right now. So it wouldn't matter how rich anybody is. Rasta says, sell Greenwood was a mistake. Is cooking it in France. Well, everybody's got an opinion on the Greenwood situation, whether or not it was right or not. So Rasta says, I see us getting Galatasaray. I hope not, because I still have PTSD from being at that Galatasaray match. Like I've said, my seat was on the goal line for that whole penalty situation that Onana fucked up and Casemiro conceded. That was freaking annoyed. Agile Beast, welcome back. Glazers are cold-blooded snakes. The Glazers are. You guys, I did that video while I was gone. I uploaded that, books that United fans should read, and one of them is The World's Biggest Cash Machine. Go read that if you want a crash course in the Glazer United ownership, how that came about, where they got their money, all that kind of stuff. It's a good book. Parig, sorry, I'm gonna keep saying Patrick Parig. I am Carey, lad. Good deal. Well, welcome, man. Glad to have you. So the question, getting back to Rich's comment on my video the other night, the question is, has Ruben Amorim been backed? Was it even possible to back him the way that a lot of us were hoping, or really what needed to be done? Should Ineos have done more to find solutions to the financial situations? Could they have done more, really? Could we have pushed a little harder to find a buyer for somebody like Rashford? We know that there was all this talk about selling Cobby, selling Garnacho to raise funds. Could we not have pushed harder to sell Rashford? Could, for argument's sake, could playing Rashford a little bit more with the plan still be to sell him in January? Could that have helped us maybe find a permanent solution? Or was it better to back Ruben Amorim in the way of benching him and not even including in the squad? Again, backing doesn't just always mean buying players sometimes. Again, that's why I ask, what more could they have done? Is trimming the squad now with an eye on the summer, is that enough backing? Is Dorgu enough? Is Aiden Heaven enough right now? Both of whom are probably ready for the first team, but they're going to take time. They're new, they're young, they're not the finished article. Is that enough? Rob says, Casemiro has remained professional now that he's staying. Will he get time on the pitch? I mean, he might not have a choice. We've got Collier, Casemiro, Ugarte, Bruno, Menu. Midfield is reasonably stacked numbers-wise, but is it stacked quality-wise? I don't know. Mount could be back at some point in the future until he trips walking on the pitch, and then he's out for another 2 months. I don't understand how every time Mount gets an injury, it's automatically like 2 or 3 months. I really don't understand how that is physically even possible unless you're literally made of glass. Mad Hatter, at what point should Amorim consider adjusting tactics if results continue like the Palace game? It's a good question. Let me pose that to the chat. Oops, that's not how you spell summer. Sorry. All right, I'll put that in there for you guys. You guys can let me know how you feel about that. But it's a good question because I think it's an important question, even though it's a hard question to ask. It's one that Amorim's probably asking himself. It's one that the club probably is asking him. The Ineos probably are wondering. The players are probably. Well, we know the pundits and the media are, but we know that the media are waiting for this, just like they're waiting for managers to get sacked. They want this to happen. Robbie Savage was already falsely going in on Amorim like a month ago for supposedly abandoning his principles when he didn't. But they can't wait for it because the moment they're going to sit here and tell you the whole time that Amorim needs to do this, Amorim needs to switch to a back four, he needs to switch to a back four. And then the moment he does that, he's lost because the moment he does that, then the media will be, well, Amorim abandoned his principles. He gave in, did like what was the point of all this stuff? Is he the right man for the job? It doesn't matter. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So you might as well just keep doing what you think is right. That's just the way it is. Rasta says our two strikers are no good. Our two strikers are not good right now. I'm a little more patient with Højlund because he is young. He did just turn 22 today. Xerxes, I don't think is a striker. He's not an out-and-out number 9, but they need to be doing better. I mean, you guys know I like Højlund. I do think he needs some time, but he needs to do better. His first touch is god-awful. Rasta says they literally took $1 billion out of the club. The Glazers taken a lot. Some of that can't be measured on a spreadsheet. What they've taken, and they did nothing to earn it. Rayon, welcome to the channel. We need creativity in the team and less anxiety from the players. They look lost when it comes to passing and creating a play to score and push forward. Yes, I agree, and that's why I said we needed some 10s. We need ball progression. We need creativity. We need legs. In that final third, we need to find the strikers. We needed someone like a Cherki. We needed someone like a Naipan. We needed someone like an Embuemo. Those kind of players we need. I know we had scouts at Sunderland and Middlesbrough yesterday to watch Chris Rigg again, the young attacking midfielder for Sunderland. I hope that we were watching Hayden Hackney as well for Middlesbrough. The guy had a goal and assist yesterday as a deep line playmaker for Middlesbrough, and he's still so young too, and he's captaining that Middlesbrough side. Hayden Hackney is the one we need to go for. He's the answer to the midfield right there. He can lock up that pivot real quick. Let me see what the guys are saying in the chat. Should Amorim adjust his tactics and system until the summer? So far, 57% of you are saying no. I'll leave that open for a little bit. Again, so has Amorim been back? What does backing look like right now? How much backing was possible? I think that Ineos think they have backed him because they're looking at more of the long term, trimming the squad, backing him with the Rashford situation, all that stuff. But I think that's a big question, and it's not an easy one to answer. Lionhearts wants to know what the story is with Naipan. The latest news was coming out earlier this week, or last week, was that he's going back to Rosenborg. He decided to stay for right now, and then he'll reassess the options later on. So that's the latest so far. So all this so far that we've been talking about has literally just been PSR transfers, and then squad trimming stuff regarding Ineos. I haven't even touched on the cost cutting, on those kind of off pitch decisions that we've seen as well, because that plays into it too. Because this, not only does this tell us a lot about where the finances are, it tells us a lot about where Ineos' priorities are. Again, why are the fans kind of bearing the brunt of this? So in terms of the ticket hikes, right? Yes, it's only 3% of the 33-pound tickets that have been upped to the 66-pound, right? It's only 3%. It's not like all of those tickets are up. Like, I think that's something the media is conveniently leaving out. But it still doesn't look good, and I still don't agree with it. Like I said last night too, how much is that actually raising? How much is 3% of that ticket bracket up to 66-pound? How much is that really making you on a match day basis? I don't think it's enough to be noticeable. But again, I don't agree with it. I don't think that the fans should have to bear the brunt of the financial situation you inherited. If I decide to buy a restaurant, be a restaurateur, that's the first time I get to use that word, right? I like that word. But if I buy one that's been mismanaged and neglected and has debt, and needs a ton of work, I can't suddenly start charging $100 for a chef salad to help pay for all that when I realize that it's going to charge. Even if I only charge 3% of the customers that much, I can't do that. That's on me to take care of. It only looks negative to do stuff like that. Cutting concessions to some of those ticket fans, that's another one. The stewards bonus, the staff cuts, the travel perks for the cup finals and whatnot, the charity contribution. I can get some of that, right? I don't necessarily like it, but I can understand it. And I've discussed that in some previous streams as well. I don't think anybody really does the steward bonuses, really. I'm not saying I'm happy about it. I can a little bit understand what this is going. The staff cuts, I can understand a little more. We had a bloated workforce that had nearly 300 more staff on it than any other club in the league. Ineos, remember, they did that audit when they came in last spring, and the audit revealed a ton of unprofessionalism, sloppiness, laziness across the board, whether it's the dressing room at the academy or like the IT department. A lot of it was just not good. And honestly, if I'm an employee and there's a new owner and they come in, I'm going to clean my shit up and I'm going to try hard. If that's not a good look. Travel perks, it is a bummer. I know that the media spins that as, the staff bearing the brunt. The travel perks was more Glazier lavish overspending, to try to continue to put on this appearance that we are this big fancy club, to try to make it seem like all is well. It was basically the equivalent of a rich kid throwing a party on their parents' credit card. That's all it was. They want to look cool. And it's paid for by somebody else. That's literally the equivalent of it. The charity cuts, I know we talked about the charity cuts. I did a stream about that. It was just cutting the 40,000 to the specific organization. Now the media is framing it as they're cutting charity donations to ex-players, right? To retired players. I get that the optics, that's what it looks like. But that organization was not being run well. I did a lot of deep dive, you guys. We did that stream. That organization hadn't reported its finances for years. The website had not been updated whatsoever in about a dozen years. It just wasn't a well-run organization, and they weren't paying their dues. Sir Jim came in, and if you look at the finances for that organization, which is all public information, Sir Jim came in, and one of the first things he did was handle that charity organization's reporting, their financing. And then he basically decided, listen, you guys are not running this well. It's severely mismanaged. You guys aren't doing what you're supposed to do in terms of your financial reporting. We're not going to be donating to this anymore. He basically decided to stop donating to a poorly run organization. Now, the media whipped fans into a frenzy because of the word charity. People hear owner stops donating to charity, they freak out about it. I get it. The media, you have to understand, this is what the media does. The United still donates to charities. It has its whole 92 Foundation. They have so many charities that they donate to. Stop buying into the negative media spin. That's exactly what the media wants you to do. I'm going to get caught up. Hold on. Amorim says, Jay, welcome to the channel. Jay, Amorim was brought in because Ineos want to see a style of play or a system they can recruit for. Does not make sense to change because of where we are. No, I agree. I think that there's a difference, though, between, I guess, quote, abandoning principles, changing the system, and making just a few subtle differences. Like, I don't agree with the whole dropping both strikers, starting Kami Mainu. Like, that to me was just not a smart decision. I don't agree with not having a sense of your best 11, your core 13, 14, 15 players. Like, there's no need to be experimenting. I don't agree with the sense of, I think sometimes that there's a way to still play that three at the back system and still tweak it just slightly on the day, depending on the opposition, depending on the players you have fit. Like, instead of maybe a 3-4-2-1, maybe like a 3-1-4-2 on a given day, to add, if you're playing against a team with a low block or something, adding another body up front a little bit more to give those defenders a little more to think about, rather than just having one striker isolated. It's very easy to defend against our strikers right now because the striker's isolated. Our 10s are having to drop back deep to get the ball, leaving a ton of space and a lot of work for people to do to get the ball forward. Too often we're playing in a back five. The wing backs are sitting too deep, or they're passing back. Things like that, little tweaks. You're not changing the system, you're just tweaking it a little bit to get the best out of what you have available to you, if that makes sense. But I totally agree. Welcome to the channel, Jay. Teresa says, isn't there money coming in for Sancho in the summer? In the summer, yeah, and we'll get to count all that at once, but we have to wait to get that. We don't, because technically, I think that wasn't that the thing where only if Chelsea finish above 14th did we get that. So technically, they could finish lower than that, but I doubt it. Jay says, I think United fans to see it as it is and accept we're not where we're supposed to be, and we're not so much a big club as we claim to be. We are still a big club. We're one of the biggest clubs in the world. The problem is, even a big club can be mismanaged, and we've been mismanaged for nearly 2 decades by the owners who just only had their own self-interest in mind. No plan, constant knee-jerk reaction, constant overspending, constant poor recruitment, can't sell players, and it put us in the situation we're in right now. Add to that the stadium neglect, the neglect of the women's team, all that stuff, and it doesn't make for good reading. 66 pounds, what do you convert that? That's 82 US dollars. Honestly, I have no idea what conversion is. The only cash I take out when I go to the when I go on my trips to Manchester is a couple pounds to go up to the rooftop at Hotel Football before a match and drink a Guinness, because it's for charity. You put a pound in a bucket and you go in and you buy a drink and whatever. I only get the pound. I don't spend cash, because if I spend it, I'll either lose it or I'll spend it a lot quicker than my card. Danny says, I'm originally from Limerick City. Power, good deal, man. The Irish folks linking up. I appreciate that. Lionhearts, I don't know where I heard this, but I thought it was a great idea. Why don't United set up a GoFundMe and say we need your help instead of price hikes? I'm sure the United fans would rally together. I think so. MUST, the Must Foundation, had a couple of suggestions, and one of them had to do with fans. Like, why don't you let the fans buy the actual shares and invest in the club? I have a couple of things that I'll share as well towards the end, but there's a lot of ways you could raise money that don't involve ticket hikes, personally. They should freeze the ticket prices. They should find, because the onus is on you as an owner to find creative solutions to these problems. And I don't think just passing the buck to the fans, cutting costs, I think that's an easy out, and it doesn't show me any sort of creativity, any sort of ideas, any sort of ingenuity. I think that that's lazy. Lionhearts says, I looked up the charity as well. It seemed like it was really mismanaged. Exactly, Lionhearts. I put a lot of those graphics up when we did that stream. You guys can go back and find that stream if you want. The charity, it's public information. It was very mismanaged. Find the website. The website looks like I made it in Microsoft Word 40 years ago. It's not, and it hasn't been updated. You can see the stamps, the timestamps from when things were updated. It's not a well-run organization. So again, the media likes to conveniently omit that kind of information from their stories. Rasta says, I don't see us winning our next 3 matches coming up in consistency. Leicester could give us a rough day on Friday. Spurs are going to be rough, and oddly enough, Matthias Tell could play us in his first match for Spurs, because that's who we get next weekend. So that's fun. So again, coming back to the media spin, so charity and whatnot. So in an effort to get a grip on the club's finances, there has been a focus on reducing off-pitch spending and trimming the squad. Like we've said, Ornstein, Whitwell, and what we've seen on paper, that's been the effort. And again, I get that. But what it's starting to feel like is Sir Jim is always going to have to find ways to fund his ownership. Now, he's not going to do like the Glazers and he's just taking money, because he hasn't taken money yet. People are putting, like, it's so weird to the fans online who think that he's just pocketing the money that he's hiking. He's not. He's finding a way to get the club out of debt. But my problem is that I feel like this is always going to be the way that he's looking to do it, finding these sort of solutions, because he doesn't have the money. Now, I get it. It wasn't his debt. It's a lot of debt. He's minority shareholder, not majority. So I get, to an extent, not wanting to pay for other people's mistakes in that regard. But this is part of the responsibility of ownership. This is what you knew you were getting into. This is what you took on. It is your responsibility. Now, I'm not saying it's your responsibility just to write a check and pay for it all, but it's your responsibility to find expedient, creative, efficient ways to handle that don't put the brunt of that on the fans. That's part of ownership. If you can't afford to run a club, why did you put in a bid to do so? Why did your bid value the club higher than the Qatari bid? That's why the Glazers opted for Sir Jim. It wasn't that he's their friend or whatever, or that he's local. It's that overall his bid over time put the club at a higher value than the Qataris. And the Glazers said, well, we'll still be alive. Then we'll just get more money in the long run. As the minority shareholder, he did inherit a lot of mess that wasn't his own making. Again, I understand his reluctance to pay for that. But again, he did his due diligence. He knew what he was buying. Was the plan all along to fire people, to raise ticket prices? I mean, did you not have a plan? What was the plan when you took over? I need to know what the plan was. How much is cutting the steward bonuses really going to save you? Figure out a way to make it work. I don't care. It's not my job to come up with solutions. It's your job to come up with solutions that don't fall upon the fans. I said it the other day, release a fourth kit, for fuck's sake. I don't care if it is a money grab, because unlike raising ticket prices, it's not forcing anything on anybody. Fans are totally well within their rights to choose to buy a fourth ticket or not. Release something like that. Like Barcelona do it all the time. I don't care. We can sit and laugh at Barcelona, but if it's going to mean the difference between some money, fucking do it. Who cares? Slap the badge on 100 million different things. Pencils, socks, mouse pads. I don't care. Slap the badge, sell it all in the mega store. People will buy it. Now, that probably sounds mean. No one's forcing anybody to buy that shit, but people will. Stop, rent your space at some of your stadium. Like when you build a new stadium, rent space and have restaurants, have hotels there. Lease space to other businesses to use it, instead of like use Old Trafford for the kids, for the women's team, instead of leasing space at Lee Sports Village. Like, find a way to make your space work for you and earn your money. This is what they need to be doing. If they're not doing that when they're looking at this new stadium, then they're fucking idiots. The finances are only going to get worse too if we miss out on Champions League again, because Adidas are not happy already. We've already seen some of that funding get cut. It's only going to get worse. And again, to his credit, Sir Jim hasn't taken money. He's put a lot of his own into the infrastructure so far. But again, I worry if he's got enough to do it for a club of this size, because we've already seen it happen at Nice. So one of you guys said in the chat, I've seen Nice fans say, like, they don't really know what they're doing. They're not really good. They don't make good decisions. And you can get away with that to an extent at a club like Nice. You can't do that at United. You have to have more. It's the same with players. Just because you do well at Nice, coming to United is a huge step up. And as an owner, that's even more. It's a big responsibility. It's all optics. You have to make sure you're doing really well. And so far, it's been a bit disappointing. Speaking of Nice, can you not just sell Nice to raise funds? I mean, why not just sell Nice? We can't take players from Nice if we're in the same European competitions. It's another drain on finances, and it splits your focus financially, your focus attention wise, it like logistically even. Like, just I don't like that. I don't like owners who have that kind of stuff going on. Just sell Nice. That would solve a lot of problems, I think. Let me get in touch with you guys. What do we got here? Rasta. Oh, we saw that one. Teresa, the strikes roll on Amorim's system involve a lot more than wait for the ball in the box. Victor at Sporting runs his arse off left and right, opening the center for assists. Yeah, and Højlund needs to do better at that. we need to stop playing him as a hold-up striker. The problem is Højlund, if you watch the matches, if you watch Højlund's runs, he is making runs. And recently, Licha has been finding him a lot. Licha is the only one who's been finding those runs because Licha's got a left foot. Dallo doesn't have a left foot. So in order for Dallo to find Højlund's run, Dallo's got to take an extra step, cut inside, one extra touch to create that ball for himself, and then he's going to find Højlund. By the time he plays that ball, it's too late. We don't have enough natural left footers who are going to play those whipped in balls around the outside. We don't have enough players in midfield who can play those incisive through balls like I watched Hayden Hackney do for Middlesbrough yesterday. We need more of that because Højlund makes a lot of runs. And yes, his hold-up play is shit, but he makes a lot of runs. He's just not being found. We're not getting the ball into the box. Hopefully we can start moving the ball forward a little bit more. But that's been a huge, huge problem. Rasta says, in the Bundesliga, defense on 50% of the clubs, we needed something like that. Yeah, it's... Teresa says, yeah, LOL stickers roll. Yeah, slap the badge on literally anything you want. People will pay for it, and no one's forcing the people to do it. If you ever go to the Megastore, so I did the stadium tour because I wanted to check out the new players entrance, which looks awesome, by the way. And they redid the dressing room too. But the last stop on the stadium tour is the Megastore. They bring you into the back of the Megastore, and you go through there. And the Megastore is always packed. Match day, you can't even move in there. Any other day, it's open. It's always packed. People buy the stuff. I don't buy anything in the Megastore. It's crazy overpriced. I'm not spending that much on a shirt, let alone some of the training. Now, the training gear is fire. I like the training gear. I'm not spending. I'll go fucking look around on eBay or GoGoalShop, which I have the link for in the description if I want my United shit. Lionheart, setting up a GoFundMe will still mean we have to pay back the money that comes from financial support you need. Box, big up, Box. Good to see you again, man. We were just kind of on one today. We're talking about all things Ineos. Right now, we're talking a little bit about cost cutting and stuff. But get your thoughts in. We're talking about the window. We're talking about everything. Box says, I'm glad we didn't panic buy. I'm glad we didn't panic buy, but I think that it would have been nice to see a little bit more of a initiative going into this window in terms of, yes, PSR was limiting us, but I would have liked to see more of an initiative to find solutions to the PSR problems going into the window. Maybe a little bit more initiative to get Rashford fully off the books rather than just a loan. You know, if that was always the plan, like, should we have played him a little bit more to get him in the shop window a little bit to maybe could have got a permanent deal instead of just a loan? What are you guys saying right now? Should Amorim adjust his tactics until the summer? 67% say no. Pretty much, I'm going to end that there. So sounds like you guys are still behind the manager, which I like to see. Back the manager no matter what. Question is, how bad does it get before you guys start changing your mind on some of that? Are you willing to be the most expensive squad in the championship if it meant we back the manager? You guys let me know. Box says, I didn't want to have an obligation to buy on Tell for 60 mil. And even though the squad is stretched, I'm glad we didn't go for loans like a Felix and Kunku, Chilwell. Yeah, I like Tell. I don't know. We weren't given the same deal that Spurs did, but even if we had to pay 10 million, take all of his wages, and then have a 60 million option, I wouldn't have liked that personally. It is what it is. If we had done that deal, we've been slated for it in the press. Agile says, hopefully Dorgu gives us the left-footed balance in the final thirds. I think so, and that was always the problem with Ashley Young. If you guys remember Ashley Young, when he played left back, he had no left foot. So he always had to stop, cut down to his right. And when you do that, you telegraph that. It's the same with Anthony. Oddly enough, Anthony has scored some great goals for us with his right foot, but he always had to cut in onto his left. And when you know that as a defender, it's easy to defend against. Now, there are some times where you can't defend against it. And like, you couldn't defend against Gareth Bale. You couldn't defend against Arjen Robben doing that. Some people, you know it's coming and there's still nothing you can do about it. Imagine being that as a defender, knowing exactly what's going to happen when you're up against Arjen Robben and still telling yourself on all levels, like, I can do fuck all about that. He's going to score or he's going to dive because Arjen Robben likes that. You know who else likes that? Mo Salah. Hey. Box. Do they lock you in the Megastore until you buy something? No, they do try to trick you into getting something. So, like, before you go to the Megastore, you go to the press room, right, where Amorim and everybody sits ahead of the matches and whatnot, and they say, like, you can, for extra, you can go get your picture taken at the desk where they sit, and then that costs you money. I think, like, I don't know. I never bought anything in there. I think Justin ended up getting his kid a Fred the Red stuffed animal, and then we outside. There's if you go outside the mega store in front of the stadium by the statue, there's a ton of people selling scarves and stuff. I think we got his son a Glory Glory Man United scarf because we taught him the song before we left, his little kid. So things like that. But yeah, the mega store is crazy overpriced, which that's fine. I don't care if people spend their money. People can spend their money on whatever they want, but that's a way to get more money. Start just slapping the badge on anything you can imagine and fucking slap it on some old ass like pottery or some shit. I don't care. Slap it on a magpie and put the magpie in there. I was my first time seeing magpies. They're beautiful, by the way. Rayon says we really need left footers in the team. Not having Luke when Rashi played brought down his level. Well, we can't count on Luke, unfortunately. The guy's never fit. Are we taking bets on how long he'll be fit when he's come back? There's a rumor that he will be back in the squad for Friday's match against Leicester, which is a little sooner than I thought he would be. Sanjay, welcome. Good to see you again, Sanjay. I'm just going through the chats real quick before I move on to my next point. But it's good to see you. Welcome, Sanjay. It's good to see you getting involved in the live. I know sometimes we miss each other because of the schedules, but this was the only time I had to do this today. So we're doing this, and then I got to go do paycheck stuff and prep for tomorrow's video and stuff. Don't remember to come back tomorrow, by the way. We're going to be chilling with Dylan as we talk about the Leicester match, and we get Dylan's thoughts on January. Box says, yes, I really wanted this window to be about permanent sales or getting loans obligation. Yeah, I wish it could have. It's hard to get that done in January. Again, we're not the only club struggling with PSR. I think a lot of clubs are saving up for the summer right now because we're not the only club who hasn't sold anybody. Line Sart says, I wouldn't have minded a wee touch of panic, to be honest. There's always that point where you're like, come on, just do something, right? Just buy somebody, anybody. I don't care. Buck says, imagine having Robin or Bale now. They'd be the best players in the league. I was always bummed we never were seriously in for Gareth Bale. I like Gareth Bale. He got so much shit at Real Madrid. And obviously his legs started to let him down. But when your game as a player is based solely on pace and power, that's going to happen sooner than later. Teresa says, Amorim hasn't even been here 3 months. Give him a chance. He worked hard to get his training time. It will make a difference. I hope so. Amorim gets a pass until the summer for sure, right? And we're going to see how it goes. So, again, talking about the club. So the club ended up writing a letter to the 1958. I think that was last month. This is what they had to say. I'm going to take let me take that logo off there for a hot second so you guys can see what that says. Obviously it's a long letter. I highlighted some of the interesting points here where it says, as previously communicated, we are, however, currently making a significant loss each year, totaling over £300 million in the last 3 years. This is not sustainable. And if we do not act, we are in danger of failing to comply with PSR FFB requirements in future years and significantly impacting our ability to compete on the pitch. Club goes on later on to say, we do not expect fans to make up all the current shortfall, but we do need to look at our ticketing strategy to ensure we are charging the right amount and offering the right discounts across our products. So again, it's very frustrating, to be honest. I think that I've said it a few times. I understand and sympathize that the current financial and PSR situation is all on the Glazers and Woodward and Arnold and Murtaugh. I get it. The Anthony deal itself, that's a sackable offense, that, in my opinion, and one that it's taking us a long time to recover from. That was a big, big deal for us PSR-wise because we're never going to make that money back. Ineos have a lot of work to do, but where my empathy ends is, again, Ineos knew exactly what they were buying. They knew exactly what the situation was. They were allowed to do their research. They looked at the books. They did all that. They knew what they were getting into. The onus is on them to find solutions to these problems, and not ones that minimize job cuts, not ones that have to do with job cuts or ticket hikes. You can't pay lip service in a letter like this in the 1958 by saying the fans are what make the club great, but then turn around and raise ticket prices. That, to me, that's the contradictory statement to action. Again, it's only 3% of a 33-pound bracket, but it doesn't look good at all. And you just have to find another way to raise funds and cut those costs. You have to. Just like Amorim is undergoing a bit of a trial and error with his squad, Ineos seem to be doing that with their decisions. You know, they backed Ten Hag, they sacked him. They fought for Ashworth and they sacked him. They're learning a little bit. that sometimes these decisions are not going to go the way they feel. I'm glad that they're quick to make those corrections, but at the same time, it gets worrying when you have to make so many corrections. I don't like these other decisions. And like Amorim, they have to find solutions quickly and creatively. Simply raising prices, firing people is not a solution. It's a knee-jerk, easy get-out-of-jail option, as that letter kind of implies. That they hope they don't continue to do it, but if they do, they will. I'm gonna put my logo back up there because I like it. So hold on a second. Let me see what you guys are got going on here. Bach says, I was watching the Bale highlights at Spurs, probably the closest I've seen to a young CR7. Yeah, he was so good. He was still good when he was at Southampton as well. Danny says, Amorim has a pass till Christmas. Yeah, the summer window is going to tell me a lot. I do think we're going to need to see some results get better on the pitch. We can't go the rest of the season failing to win back-to-back league games. That we haven't won back-to-back in the league all season, and that's just not sustainable in my opinion. But Ineos have to find a way to help him out as well. Now, there was a bit of breaking news this morning that Sir Jim is going to be making some sales to raise money. It's not a player. It's not anything like that. It's not hotels like Chelsea want to do. So this is coming from Sky Sports editor Mark Kleinman. He shared the news this morning that Sir Jim is apparently selling Ineos Hygienics. Now, this is a business that Ineos established during the pandemic to provide medical supplies to NHS workers, frontline workers, things like hand sanitizer and other supplies. So that right now is going to be raising some money. Sir Jim is selling that business. The firm that Ineos have been using to handle the whole cost-cutting stuff at Old Trafford is the same firm that they're basically trusting to handle that sale as well. So we'll see how much of that goes towards United and anything else. It doesn't have to, right? It's well within his rights not to, but I think if he's serious about helping United, about doing some of this, then that's something that he should at least consider. I'm never going to tell people what to do with their money. That's not my job. I'm not going to do that. But I think that if it were me, I would that's something that I would be doing to handle the situation at United if I'm serious. I'd be selling Nice if I were Sir Jim. I'd be putting out a statement that we're freezing ticket prices, we're lowering that ticket hike down, and we're finding other ways. And the fans, if that's the case, the fans also need to be a little patient with the fact that it's going to take a while for a lot of that to bear fruit. Now, again, I still hold a little bit of accountability on Sir Jim. Like, you knew what you were getting into. You're the owner. You've got to figure it out. I get that. We're going to see what happens between now and the end of the season, but we are really light right now as far as the squad goes. We're very light as far as the transfer funds go. Financially, though, I do think Ineos probably see this window as a success, as Nathan Salt was talking on Stratford Paddock yesterday. The only way it would have been better, I think, in their eyes, is if it would have been Casemiro to get sold as well, get those wages off the books, and probably a straight sale for Rashford or Anthony probably would have been better for them. Rashford probably being the better option there. Luke Shaw, again, reportedly back in the squad, so we'll see what happens there. He's not going to stay fit. He's definitely not Licha, but Dorgu and Heaven are going to have to hit the ground running. Unfortunately, there's not going to be much time for them to have to go through this development process. They're going to have to show us something soon, and not because I'm trying to be unreasonable, because literally there's just a need for them to do that. We have to pray for no injuries to the rest of our 4 remaining attackers, but again, that doesn't even begin to consider fatigue and rotation. That's just not. It just gets worse the more you look at it. Rayon, what's the difference between Ollie's team, who was scoring lots of goals, Ten Hag's team, and this current squad? There's a lot of differences. I mean, Ollie was all attack, like Rude, all attack. Now, I couldn't tell you what happened with Ten Hag because there was a different system, so I couldn't begin to tell you what happened there. But it was a bit. We did have a little bit different players. I asked the other day, like, what happened? Even we were scoring more under Ten Hag than we are right now. I don't know what happened with the strikers. Maybe it's just the sheer difference in the system, going from wingers to wingbacks, and having that was as a difference seemed like it helped. But you'd think that 2 10s would help as well. It's really, really interesting. Maybe the players just aren't able to hang with it a little bit tactically. Danny says bad recruitment. I mean, I think that the fact that I think the fullback situation versus the wingback situation plays a big part because every other system, this is the first time in our history that we really played with wingbacks, and we don't have wingbacks. Mizrawi's not a wingback. Dallow's not a wingback. Ahmad's probably the best wingback we have, and he's not really a natural wingback. And so that's a big cause. And the problem has been progression, ball progression. And when you are stuck with these half measures where Dallow can't really do it, Mizrawi still don't really know what his best position is in the system. I think that does play a role. I wish there was one thing I could point to. There's not. I think it's a lot of little things. And I think that, honestly, if I had to choose a major thing, maybe not the only thing, but the major thing, I think it's just the mentality in the squad. The mentality, the resilience is on the floor right now. There's like nobody is willing to just take the responsibility to push each other, to take initiative in certain situations. You look at guys like Onana, when he makes a mistake, he's lying on the ground. Maguire trying to win headers, he's always on the back foot because he doesn't have the mentality to go and attack. Bruno, when the shit hits the fan, he abandons all these tactics and he just starts hoofing it, trying to play wild passes. There was a play the other day where he gets the ball into the final third before, I think it was before the first half ended, and he just, without even looking, just tries to lash it across the box. Like, when all he had to do was stop for a second, get his head up, and play someone else in. Like, shit like that. It's just bad decision making, bad mentality, a lack of resilience. And it's just, we have too many people who are on a lot of money who aren't good enough. And it's just, it is what it is. Box says, I think for Amorim, it's a case of the longer removed from Fergie, the harder it gets. In terms of ownership complacency, most of us hoped the longer time went on, the easier it would get. Yeah, there's always that Glazer factor. That's always going to be a bit of a ball and chain around our ankles in some ways. Box says, paying for poor recruitment, poor time decisions, sometimes a reluctance to make the change needed, toxic culture, build up, complete mess. In 2025, we're 12 years deep post. Yeah, it's all we had to do is just have a plan. If we had done the Amorim situation when Fergie retired, if we had had a plan, if we had decided on a culture, on an identity, on a project then, instead of just going through this cycle of a manager every couple of years, completely changing the squad because there was no plan, it was all knee-jerk, it was overspending, it was poor recruitment, it could have been a lot different. We definitely wouldn't be in the PSR situation right now, so that probably has more to do with it than anything. But there was no plan, because up until he retired, the Glazers just relied on Fergie and David Gill to just work magic. And to their credit, they did. They realized that they didn't have a plan, and the whole time it was Fergie pretty much making everything work, and the players, to be fair. And then the people we had in charge of the most important decisions at the club were not fit for purpose either. Guys like Ed Woodward and whatnot, they don't know what they're doing. And when you let people like that who don't know what they're doing, who only have their own finances at heart, this is where we are. It just is what it is. So Amorim is paying a bit of the price for that. Ten Hag paid the price for that. It's the situation that we're in. Latinar says, not really a United question, but what's the script with João Felix? What the fuck has happened to the boy? What happened to the boy is that 100 million price tag that's been hanging over his head ever since he joined Atletico Madrid. Now, I can't say if he thinks he's the biggest, he's a big deal. I don't know, but he was not worth that. He wasn't as good as everyone thought he would, maybe as much as he thought he was. But this is what happens sometimes with players. You don't know how they're going to work out. And again, he's been to how many clubs now since he's Benfica, Atletico, Barcelona, Chelsea? Like, it just doesn't going to work. And I think he's regressed. I don't think he's as good as maybe he's like Højlund. Maybe he started bright and then he regressed to the mean. It's not that he's bad. It's just that maybe he was flash in the pan, and now we're seeing a little bit more of what his level really is. I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't. He's not a United player, so there's little interest I have in terms of what João Felix is up to. But what do you think? Let me know what you think on João Felix. Box says, I think the mega money move was too soon. Atletico under Simeone probably wasn't the right fit for his playing style. Yeah, I think that he has a role. He can play in systems. I just don't think that it's good. Oddly enough, the profile that he plays would suit us. I just don't think he's good. That's all. Box says the 2 spells at Chelsea didn't work out. They did not. So, again, reportedly, we had some scouts in attendance at Middlesbrough Sunderland yesterday. Reportedly, we are planning for the summer already. Giovanni Kenda seems to be the plan for that one. And we'll see what happens. Happy birthday to Rasmus Højlund. He turned 22. Now go score some fucking goals. And when you blow out the candles, wish for a better first touch, Rasmus. Other than that, that's going to wrap up my thoughts on Ineos, on January, on cost cuts, on summer, on sacks and hires and fires and all this stuff. Thank you guys for joining me. Leave your thoughts in the comments as well if you weren't able to catch the live, because I was more interested in hearing what you guys had to say. So it's interesting. Bach says, can you believe Enzo Lafie is playing the championship? Yeah, and if you saw, he absolutely diced Luke Ayling yesterday. Just literal behind the back, Cruyff turned to nutmeg, created space for himself. And if you watch the highlight of that particular move, Box, even Luke Ayling, like he did it, and Luke Ayling starts laughing even as he's chasing him down because he knew he just got absolutely done. It was the most hilarious thing I've seen on the pitch in a while. But on that note, thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to be back tomorrow with Dylan, probably around 5:30 or so. We're going to talk about Friday's FA Cup match. Be sure to come back and check that out and get involved. I want to hear you guys' thoughts. I'm letting Dylan pick his starting 11, so I want your guys' thoughts on that. You guys, since it's not me picking it, you can go ahead and you can go in on them all you want to. But until then, take it easy. Like the video, please. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Please get your thoughts in on Ineos and all that jazz in the comments. You guys know I'll check that out. But till then, enjoy your day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Talk to you later. Bye.